Wawawele atati hoiana, ene oe. Tati ho wakanda, wene wawani. Wawawele atati hoiana, ene. Wawawele atati hoiana, ene. Wawawele atati hoiana, ene. Tati ho wakanda, wene wawani. Wawawele atati hoiana, ene oe. Alô, Ebida, Wandere. Ijaje, Wiwita, Onpa, Konga, Wajin Ishte, Pomongadon. I come to you tonight in the fourth hill of my life. I carry the name of Big Elk in the clan of the red-shouldered elk, or part of the Sky Clan peoples. Omaha means the people that move against the current. Our name for these lands, Nebraska, you all call it the Platte River. It means flat water. It means seldom does it flood. It's beautiful and broad. Everything starts with the beginning. I'm near the waning years of my life. I was born somewhere around the sun and the moon whenever your country was founded, 1776. And I showed my prowess in my youth as a warrior. I once was young and powerful, but I always tried to be fair, even in combat. Everything begins with the beginning. The first spirit being, that earth maker, Wakanda, God, sent to this planet because earth maker has many children. And first he sent who was to become the chief of the water serpents, Wakanda ni Wakanda, that great serpent, bringer of life and water. And Earthmaker sent that spirit being to this dry and lonely planet, and the great serpent created the waters. In the beginning, for us, my people, my ancestors, we are told that we come from the stars, Seven Sisters constellation. We call it Tapa. We look at the form of the stars and we see the head of the deer there. And in that beginning, Earthmaker made a way for the first souls to journey here. One of those souls, star in the sky, pondered a question that it couldn't answer. That question was, who am I? And that soul went to his father. Went to his mother first, the moon. Mother, who am I? Oh, my child, she said. was afraid someday you were going to ask that. You need to go and tell your Father what you've asked of me. So that soul, that star, went to his father, the Son. Father, who am I? His father was saddened. Said, my child, I was afraid that someday you would ask that question. For with that question comes great responsibilities and difficulties. For you're going to leave this realm, the upper realm. Be careful with that question. For that question, who am I, is the most important question we have as souls. But that star, that soul, is like us today. Hard to keep a secret. As human beings, gossipy. And soon that question came to 3 others, for a total of 4. Omahas, we believe everything happens in 4s. And when the 4th one asked the question, they began the journey of the souls from the Deerhead constellation across the sky. We refer to that Milky River as also the celestial body of the great serpent. And when those souls landed on the planet, that Earthmaker had the great serpent populate with water. It was all water. And those souls took the form of animals. The first one who asked the question, who am I, was turtle. Then there was a waterfowl, sometimes a duck, sometimes it's a crane in these stories. Then there was the deer, and finally was the otter. And they admired the form that Creator had given them. We say, Wakanda wa'i, Wakanda gafe ga. God made us all. God give us life. And Turtle looked at his form and noticed that he had a hard shell, webbed feet and claws, like he was made for water, but maybe something else. That waterfowl flexed its wings, noticed they were light, could float on the water. Its feet were webbed too. So I'm okay in this water, but I think I can fly. Otter admired his form. That's what this is symbolic of. A powerful tail, sleek, could dive into the water, move quickly. But the deer was not made for that. Those hoofs, she was slowly going to drown. And through the journey, they forgot lots of things, except for the core teachings that Earthmaker had given to them. Be kind to one another. Be helpful. Always remember, we are all related. A without Wongale, that's what it means. And that goes for me and for all of you too. We're all children of God. We pray to the same God. As I said my silent prayer to ask Wakanda, the Great Spirit, to give me the words to educate you on my people. We don't always understand one another, and I think it's important that we do. I became principal chief for the Omahas around the year 1800. And it was in a time of much change. When I was born, we had never met white people. Soon, fur traders made their way to this land, Nebraska, Flatwater. I followed in the wake of Chief Blackbird, who was a very powerful and cunning chief. But he contracted one of those diseases that came from your people over. And he passed. I was but a young man, 25 sons, when I became a chief. They had noted that I was fair in my dealings on the combat field and with other of the rising leadership, so they made me chief. And in my time, I saw many, many things change and occur. The buffalo that were so plentiful in my youth slowly began to dissipate. Most powerful of all was the terrible disease known as smallpox. And I know that it hit other Indian tribes at different times. Perhaps it was because we were in the heart of these lands. Part north, part south, part east, part west. That's how the other tribes look at the Omaha, that were from the heart. And we knew that it had devastated. It had gone down through the south first, way out east before that, and then slowly it came to us. The first wave was 1800. The second was 1830. And by the time that I was reaching the end of my fourth hill, I stand in front of you today, it's around the year 1845. Each of those times that smallpox hit us, it was devastating. Each time it hit, if there were 100 chiefs, braves, warriors, and our wives and our mothers and our daughters and our children, there would only be 5 left standing each time it hit. I want you to think of your own community, your family, your church, and to think of all those 100 people that you hold dear and love and admire and need in your life. Because life can be hard. And there were only 5 left. That's what happened to all of the tribes. Seeing so much change. And as a young chief, I had to navigate all of those. The song that I sang for you was something that I knew that was important. That song translates, Wakanda Jinga, Nawagilaga, oh. It means Son of God, Jesus. We call him Wanive, means the healer. Walk with me. That was my prayer. While I formally never became a Christian, I encouraged all of our tribe to become one. That we would need your help to survive. My biggest worry my whole life was, are my people going to survive these calamities that are happening? The old folks say the stories that we originally came from the East Coast. And then we made our way up to those great 5 lakes. And then migrated a little south to the land of what we call Oahu. I think you all describe it as Ohio. And it means the river in the land by which we passed on the Great Migration. And at that time, all of the tribes that were related to us, Omaha, Ponca, Kansa, or Paw, Osage, Quapaw, Gachpaw, Wajaje, Ponze, Bunka, Omaha. Those names pertain to our great migration out of the east. And as we came down that Ohia River, we met the great old man, the great big river. And at that time, not only were our 5 sibling tribes together, but our cousins, the Ho-Chunks, Ioways, Oto, Missouri, the dialectical difference, they called themselves the Sheer Rear. We were all together, and we migrated up that great old man right before the confluence of Nishuda. You all call it the Missouri River. It means smoke on the water. To this day, all of those tribes and our relatives, the Lakotas, Nakotas, Dakotas, we all say that in our own dialectical differences. It means smoke on the water. In my time, when the winters were brutal, there would be ice floats out there. And on certain mornings, a frozen fog bank appears over the river. That's what Nishuda means. And as we came up that great river and came close to Nishuda, we knew that this area was going to be our home. And we knew that it was very important to document our stories to this new land. We view the earth, the land, as our mother. And we wanted the mother to know who we were as people. Ultimately, we came to a great, powerful hill that had medicine as a part of it. You could feel it in your stomach. And we ascended this great hill together, all of those tribes. And we felt what felt like the spirit being of the great serpent himself, whom we very much greatly revere for the power of life. And we found that the power was coming from a cave. And as time went along, we purified ourselves and we prayed. Our old folks thought long and hard about if we were to go in that cave, what should we tell it? What should we tell the spirit? Wakandagi, ni Wakanda. And the most important things that we have are stories. And we wanted the land and the spirit of the cave to know our stories, so we immortalized those important stories. I'm going to share a few of those with you now so you can better understand us. First, Earthmaker sent those spirit beings, the main one, the great serpent, to produce water in this world. Then came us, those 4 souls, and they kept coming in 4s, ultimately populating. Soon, Earthmaker sent different beings down here to try different things. First, there were the giants, the race of giants. I believe in your Bible you have stories of them too. They were not reverent to the teachings of Earthmaker. He sent 5 different saviors of humanity. The first was Turtle, and there was a trickster, and one named Bladder, which is a long story. And then he sent the first humans, who were really beings from the upper realm, from heaven, as you would say, maybe an angel. That was first man and first woman. She is known as the old woman who never dies. She represents Mother Earth, giver of life. He is first man, white woman, we called him. And as consorts to one another, they were instructed by Earthmaker to start a family. They had 3 boys, 3 girls. The eldest of each became very important in the origin stories of the Degi-Ha, Sioux-speaking peoples from this area, partly. The eldest of the boys was Morning Star. The eldest of the girls was known as Evening Star. I was told that when our souls make that journey across the universe, they know how to find this planet, Mother Earth, by the planet that is next to us. That's the Evening Star, Morning Star. I believe you call it Venus. And Morning Star had many adventures. Evening Star ultimately would become impregnated by a ray of the sun. I believe you all teach, told by God, that the Son of God, there was an immaculate conception, same thing. And she bore 2 twins, 2 brothers. And her powers as being a descendant of the Thunderers was great. There was another realm, though, the lower watery realm, and spirit beings resided there. And some of them were not so nice. One of those beings was jealous of this immaculate conception and the birth of these twins. And he paid a visit to Evening Star just as she brought those 2 twins into the world. And perhaps the temptation was too great for him as a dark spirit. But in the end, he ended up killing Evening Star. He left one of the babies, and he took the other twin and threw it into the spring, his realm. A tragedy for sure that sharp elbow would take her life. Family was devastated. Morning Star returned, took the young boy as the maternal uncle and said, "I'll raise him." They didn't know about the other twin. That twin was raised by the water spirits that inhabit that lower realm, and the great serpent himself, who could take human form. All of the spirit beings could take human form. He was known as Snakehide in his human form. But the twins were powerful. One, the powers of thunder and lightning. The other twin had the same powers, but was affected by being raised in the lower watery realm. He was even more powerful than his brother. And all those stories are what's important. That's what we put on the wall of that cave. All of these stories. They're parables, like what's in your good book. How to live life, how you're supposed to be. The main story, the most important one, has to do with White Queen, First Father himself. The upper realm and the lower realm were meant to be in balance between chaos and order. And he was from the upper realm, but he was very curious about the powers of the lower realm. While his spirit being could go anywhere, it was frowned upon to do that. But he was curious about the powers of the lower watery realm. And he sent 2 spirit wolves down as emissaries to investigate. And they encountered a water spirit It was a beaver water spirit, powerful, large. And it ate those spirit wolves, which enraged First Father. So he went with his compatriots down to the lower realm. There they encountered the water spirits. Some of our stories say that they gambled. Some of our stories say that the water spirits treated them into a stickball game in the underworld. And they say through trickery that they defeated First Father and his compatriots. And just like the games, everything comes with a price. And First Father and his teammates, they took their lives, kept their heads. First Father's body ascended back to the upper realm that sold us. And his companion, his consort, first woman, the old woman who never dies, was enraged by this, of course. She called for her son, Morning Star, and the two twins, her grandsons, and she painted them, the dark twin, black for battle, which means take no prisoners, and gave them powerful instruments, a mace, a spear, sacred bow and magical arrows, and down they went to avenge. Along the way they encountered one of the giants, one of the last ones, because the Creator made the flood happen to get rid of them. They defeated the giant, which emboldened them to go for the water spirits. And because of the sacred, powerful, magical weapons, they defeated them easily. They even subdued the great serpent in his human form and brought him back as a captive. Most importantly, they were able to take their grandfather's head back up. And you have this story that is common, I believe, to most human beings. Ultimately, Snakehide, the great serpent in human form, to pay for what he did, had his powers of giving life and transmuted them to first woman. Therefore, by the time that Morning Star ascended with First Father's head, he died and was given life again. Rebirth and ascension. I believe that's the same story that you all have for Jesus, that others have for Muhammad and others. Maybe that's the story that ties us all together. That story is meant to give us all hope that we can ascend after a spiritual death and have rebirth and be able to return home, what you all call heaven. I share these stories because this is our past. We made a connection with that land. There was a great city that began after we painted those images and during. And it was a great, powerful city. And we were there for that for some time. And eventually, it became not a good place for our people. And we decided to separate and leave. And that's when those names began to change. The people that move against the current, Omaha. Those that move down the current, Quapaw. And we began to separate. We have a lot of history. We keep our history different than you. We tell our stories. We ensconce them onto the walls of sacred places where there's powerful spirit beings. And the mother knows us, because when we die, our bone and blood goes into the earth so that mother will know us. I believe you all say ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We believe the same, but we want to be in the ground so the mother will know us again. Throughout my life, I was constantly worried about the survival of my people. After that first smallpox wave, I knew we were in danger, and the redcoats came back. And as a young chief, I instructed our councils that we should align with the United States. We were all weakened, but those Lakotas were infringing upon us. I even thought it wise that when one of my daughters, my oldest daughter, fell in love with a fur trader. His name was Manuel Lisa. Meat Tiny is her name. I thought it wise because he was a good man and a powerful man. He served as the Indian agent to all those tribes on the Missouri River. He was named to be the governor of Missouri. And they gave me grandchildren. Many times I had to negotiate for our survival. Your ancestors came, many of them. They wanted a new life, rights that they didn't have back in their home countries. They wanted land, they wanted an opportunity to be successful. I knew that we needed alliances. Many times, 1817, 1821, 1837, I had to go and to negotiate. One of those, the great-grandfather, Jefferson, he gave me one of these medals. There were so many opportunities that we had to use our hearts and our minds as leaders. Nudahonga is what they call us, those that wear these hats. It means the buffalo bull that walks first, the alpha. That last time that I went to a city you call Washington, I knew that the thirst and desire for lands would soon take more of ours. And I'd been to that great city out east, but this time I knew the flood of people were coming. So when I returned, I had all of my fellow chiefs, the warriors, the braves, and their families assembled. I stood in front of them as I stand in front of you now. I told them, Aho, Omaha Tribe, with that longer there. Ombate, Agiwaha. This day before the sun, I want to greet and share my visit out east. But my people, I need to tell you that I have very, very sad news. I have been to visit with the Great White Father in that city by the rising sun. And I'm here to tell you that there's a flood coming. Not water, people. And the world that we know today is not going to be the same. Listen to me, my people. This is important. There will be so many people that the animals that God give to us, They will soon be gone. And we're going to have to fend for ourselves. I believe that the bison will be gone, the elk will be gone from these lands, the wolves, all those things that are important to us and our clans. Some of you in the tribe may not know my meaning. You're in disbelief. I've heard some laugh and say that will never happen. But trust my words and my wisdom. They're coming. Many of you, my people, are old like me. By the time this flood comes, we'll probably be laying peacefully in our graves. But to you young ones, your next generations, it's going to be hard. Be good to one another. Have a kind word. Be respectful to one another. You're going to need one another. I am old and near the end of my journey, this fourth hill of life. When it comes my time, I want you to wrap me in a beautiful buffalo robe, my people. Hoist my body up onto a slender scaffold where I can be met by the four winds. And someday may those winds bring my body to the ground where my flesh can be devoured by wolves, and someday my bones to rattle on the prairie in the mouth of beasts. I'm not afraid to die, because I've had a dream, a vision of what it's like to become a soul again in the sky, to see the multitude of stars across the universe. My soul is a sphere of light, wanting to go home. I'm not afraid to die, but I want you all, my people, to live. Gategaho, I have spoken. If you have any questions for the chief, I'm glad to entertain them.
Where did you live?
Question is, where did I live? The Omahas have been in these areas since around 1500. I've moved many times. By the end of my life, our final encampments were in what was left of the legacy of Manuel Lisa and my daughter. Bellevue, what the French called it, beautiful view. That's where we were at the end of my life. But we had migrated from up north by the lands that some call Okoboji. That's what the Lakotas call it. It means cattail view. That's where we were there before, after leaving the great city in the cave, and then slowly began to migrate down here into Nebraska. And we're the only tribes that were newcomers to this area. The people that we found here when we arrived were the Skidi, the Pawnee, and the Arikara. And they had been here for a long, long time. Yes, sir.
What determined tribal boundaries?
What determined tribal boundaries? Might and power and need. It's always been said that we would have to fight for the right to protect our people and our land and our families. And by those powers, those were the boundaries. And they were often fluid, as some tribes were defeated or defeated others. Yes, sir.
Do you depend upon buffalo for your primary food, or farming, or both?
Buffalo and farming. We're people of the corn being in squash, bison, elk. Every summer we would plant our crops, and then when a certain little flower grew, that's a signal when we went to the big bison herds out this way in Nebraska. This is where the big herds were. And our hunters, our men, young men, would come out and then would return by the full moon in August, which is harvest time. Coming up, very important time, full moon in August. Yes, sir.
What kind of lodges did your people live in?
Ultimately, when we interacted up around that place, Okoboji, it was very fluid. They say that the Omaha were there with the Oto people, and the Iowa, we called them grayheads, because they lived up north of us, and there was always snow on their heads when we met them. And at that time frame, we were impacted by another language-speaking tribe, the Aripara, and they gave us earth lodges, although for them that carried much more spiritual significance. But that's where we wintered, and on the summer hunts, we used teepees. Yes, sir.
Do you have horses?
We've had horses. They say that the first ones came from the Spanish down in the south, and eventually they made it to the people on the plains, and we adapted quickly to use them. Although some of the old stories say somewhere way, way, way back, there was another type of horse that lived here, but we never knew what happened to them. But when we found those Spanish horses, we took to them, and they helped us. Yes, ma'am.
Did you control a lot of the trade on the rivers since you were on the Missouri and the Black River?
In my reign as chief, not so much. Chief Blackbird, that's what he did. He ruled with an iron fist, and some called him a pirate of the Missouri River. He would exact taxes on all the ships that went up and down. But that didn't make us too many friends. And when it came my time, I knew that to survive, we were going to have to develop alliances, be friendly to the new states, to the United States. That's why I encourage my people to become Christians. Keep your old ways, but become a Christian too. Get into homes. We knew that was best for our survival.
When you went back to Washington, D.C., it was so different than where you were from. What was your impression of the city?
That was a very busy, bustling city. I was dressed like this, and everyone stared at me. But there was a lot of powerful people there. And each time I went, it became even more powerful and more grand. By the last time I went in 1837, I knew that our survival was going to be difficult as a people.
How did the other chiefs react to your messages and your warnings, and whoever followed you? Like, what direction has it gone to the tribe?
I always try to rule. The question is, what did the other chiefs say? that's why I wanted to share that speech that I gave to them, because I knew that many of them didn't believe what I was saying was going to be true. But I was chief for a long time, and the only reason I remained chief is I was fair and tried to be honest with the people as much as possible. And I think they saw my efforts with my two daughters marrying. My younger daughter, she married a Creole French fur trader. His name was Fontenelle. And eventually, they gave me a grandson. His name was Logan. And even though most of the tribe didn't recognize him as being Omaha, because we get our identity through our father's side, I made sure that he knew Omaha and that he studied English in the hopes that someday that would come in handy. Even before I died, many of the other chiefs would use him as a translator to understand what was happening. So in the end, I felt that it was, all my decisions were transparent. And people knew that, even with my own family, I was trying to develop those relationships, especially with those fur traders, because that was the muzzle skull, the money and the influence that if they had children within our tribe, those traders, Manuel, Lisa, Lucian, Fontenelle, then they'd be more inclined to try to help us. And we were losing against the power of the Lakota. And I sought to keep ourselves friends with the United States. There were many young chiefs who wanted to fight, but our numbers had dwindled so much from the smallpox. And at the time of my death, it was starting to happen again. And said the year was in the 1840s, and I don't think I'll make it too much longer.
Time for one more question.
In the way back there,
Can you tell us about the clothing that you're wearing?
the question is about the clothing that I'm wearing during my time frame, and with some of the tribes and some of the people, we began to be able to get wonderful things from trade, which is why I was so happy to get the Peace Medal from the Great White Father, because I knew that trade was important. And where we were at on the Missouri, wonderful things came our ways. Broadcloth from England, ribbon from France, beads from Czechoslovakia. So all of these symbols, I shared with you all our creation story. This is symbolic of the otter, who was the one animal who finally went down to get the clay from the depths when there was no land, brought it back up and gave it to Turtle. Turtle put the clay on his back and the world was formed out of there. That's what Turtle Island means. And this symbol here is of the journey back home to heaven, or from there to here when we start our lives in this world. All these symbols are of the great journey. On my feet, there's thunderbirds, the messengers of the thunder beams from the sky. And this is the morning star, and again, the journey of the souls.
I want to take the opportunity to introduce you to the scholar behind the portrayal of Big Elk, Taylor King. Taylor is the 5th great-grandson of Big Elk. He's a full-time instructor at Creighton University and holds a bachelor's degree from Dartmouth College, as well as a master's of business administration and master of public administration from Harvard University, where he served as a fellow in the Harvard Project on American Indian Economic Development. Taylor is the author of Rediscovering Turtle Island, a First Peoples account of the sacred geography of America. He carries the name Bison Mane of the Earthen Bison clan of the Omaha Tribe, the people who move against the current. He also served on the Humanities Nebraska board. Let's give Taylor a warm welcome.
Thank you for having me. Are there any questions for me as a researcher or anything else? Yes.
Since there are no history books about Big Elk, where did you get all of the information?
That's a good question. How did I do the history? Because it was really, really hard to find. I mean, there's some general accounts in the ethnographic works done by Fletcher and LaFleche in the late 1800s, early 1900s. It's, mentioned his place in history. There's a beautiful photograph that was done by Hinman, and I'm not exactly sure if they know the date. My guess is he would have been around my age, so that would have been somewhere in the 1830s. I'm 56, and just bits and pieces of accounts from fur traders, early notes on Bellevue, etc. But I had to work really hard to figure out all those dates. Even when he was born is contested because there was no record around 1776, but they've got a 5 or 6 year range. And quite a bit of debate in some of the sources of when he died, but he didn't die until 1848. And he had negotiated several of the big treaties, but he saw the writing on the wall, and he handpicked his successor, who was part Métis, Canadian Indian, and Ponca, and somehow Big Elk was related to his mother. So he adopted him within the tribe. He did not pick either of his sons to follow him. And we're not sure exactly why. I know that Big Elk, the younger, didn't live a long time, and not sure why. But he picked Joseph LaFleche, who was a good leader, and counseled him to continue the tradition of peacemaking and alliance. And so the big treaty that came after his death was the Treaty of 1854, which is when we vacated the city of Omaha and got moved to our reservation up in Macy. It wasn't too long after that. That turned out to be very fortuitous for us. As far as I'm aware, we're one of the very few tribes to actually ask to be put on a reservation because we were so devastated by smallpox that Big Elk counseled soon-to-be Chief LaFleche that we need to be interred on a reservation to protect us. A lot of the larger Siouan tribes, at one point we were all related, but the Lakotas and some of the Nakota tribes were coming down, and they really picked on the Poncas, and they picked on us too. So through that relationship, I think because of Big Elk's ambassadorship, that when we requested to be put on a reservation, we were. The rest of the tribes did not, and eventually they were all removed down to Indian Territory. So all of those other tribes, Iowas, Otos, Pawnees, they all got removed to Oklahoma. We and the band of those Poncas that followed Chief Standing Bear back up here were the only ones who were able to remain in our homelands. So I believe Chief Big Elk had a lot to do with that, with his negotiating.
Did he not have smallpox?
No, he did not. Somehow, the question was, did he die of smallpox? And, he was somewhere in his early to mid 70s, I think. Don't know that it was smallpox, but it was never reported anywhere. But some of those part of the speeches, he was a very eloquent orator. And I just love all the language. He was theatrical. The lines about wrap my body in a buffalo robe and hoist me up to a slender burial site. Let the wind bring my body back to the earth so my flesh may be devoured by wolves and my bones rattled on the plains in the mouth of beasts. He said that. He also, that was at a speech in 1813, and it was at a funeral for a very important chief up in Lakota country, who was the maternal grandfather of Crazy Horse. So you got to remember that was 1813.
Did you always know you were related?
I did. There's quite a few of us who are in my family and within my clan. But when you go back 5 generations, there's going to be quite a few. There was a hand up here. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Do the caves that you referred exist, and if so, have you visited them?
Yes. So the question is, I refer to the cave. So my first book is kind of a generalist, talks a lot about, it's all about my ancestors, but the role of, how corn is so important becomes a part of our symbology. It's what I was telling you about first woman. She's also known as Mother Corn. And I went in general to a lot of that. Around 5 years ago, the people who own the cave, it's been in private ownership since 1953. That's the ones that I know of. And previous landowners were pretty good about letting some of the tribes in and some academics. Whenever it changed hands in 2020, one of the tribes tried to buy it, the Osages, but I think they foolishly thought that the landowner should just give it to them, and that's not sound economics. And
Where is the cave?
It's around 60 miles outside of St. Louis, near where the Mississippi begins to intersect with the Missouri River. So unfortunately, after the last sale, there were a lot of hard feelings between a lot of people. The Osages made a big stink publicly that this new person never should have bought the sacred land. What they didn't realize is that all of us were there. And so my second book is about Picture Cave. And I've been doing vast research. I'm under contract for book number 2 to get it. Unfortunately, in the hurt feelings, it was a very ugly affair, the way that they handled it, and they really embarrassed the new landowner, who is anonymous. And at that point, the cave was closed off to pretty much everybody. And so I've been working for 5 years to try to build trust and a relationship with the new landowners team. And they granted me access now 3 weeks ago. So very blessed to be able to go there. And all the things that I told you through the Chief's voice is what I felt and what I intuited as an Indigenous person today. When I say that it has medicine, everyone always says, what do you mean by medicine? And I said, medicine, powerful Indian medicine. I believe that the spirit of the Great Serpent resides in there. Many people, upon reaching the cave, and the exact site is secret, because on one hand we're trying to protect it and the land around it, and I get that. Especially cave art is very delicate, even though it's been there for 1,300 years. There's graffiti in there going back to early 1800s. All of the major panels, and the stories I were telling you are the stories that are on the walls there. And with a few exceptions, there's some graffiti that's close to them. But still yet, when you're looking at 1,300-year-old rock art in some cases. to see where some fool took a can of black spray paint and made big vertical lines and little circles all over the place. It's heartbreaking. But it's still there, and so many indigenous sacred geography sites have been destroyed. A lot of the earthworks, which I write about in my first book, were destroyed by farming and industrialism. So the fact that we still have this cave, that I get to write about it, cross fingers if I'm producing a trailer for the new landowner in the hopes of continuing to negotiate to turn it into a documentary. And if that were the case, I'll have to come back out here and show it, finish off the story with you. Any other questions?
Where was the reservations that you went to? Where were they, the reservations?
It's 75 miles north on Highway 75 from Omaha, or 75 miles up the river. Near the towns on the reservation. It's next to Decatur. So if you were to go past Blair on Highway 75, go past Tekamah, Decatur, and then Macy is the sort of county seat, but Walt Hill is and Pender are under our jurisdiction as well.
It's still there.
Oh yeah, it's still there. Our tribe is probably north of 7,000. Got to understand the impact of smallpox. By the third wave, after Big Elk's death, the last wave hit in 1860. We were down to no more than 300 and change. Poncas were down to 200. At one point, the Pawnees, which had numbered between 14 and 21,000, I believe they were down at one point to 400. So we almost didn't make it. So Big Elk's concerns were founded and grounded, and he was really trying to do the best.
A few months ago, I was in Bellevue and took some pictures of Big Elk's burial.
It's not where he was originally buried, but I love that spot.
Well, it's a nice spot. That's what I was going to ask you, is how did he end up there? Or is he even there?
He's in there. His spot of his original burial is now basically an apartment building in Bellevue under a sidewalk. But at the time, the reason he was moved, there was a college that was put there. You got to remember he died in 1848, so I would assume, I can't remember the name of the school, but it's not there anymore, but that was probably the late 1800s, whenever it was built, and then they moved him to the cemetery. But it's a beautiful spot up there, and I go up on regular pilgrimages to sit with my ancestor. I really believe that he was with me today and helped me along. That's what my prayers were, was to accurately represent in the hopes that people better understand the indigenous peoples. One more in the back.
Which daughter are you a descendant of?
I come from not the Manuel Lisa daughter. I come through the side that was through the Fontanelle, but I'd have to look at it exactly to tell you from where to where. That's quite a few generations. But I know my dear friend Jose knows all about Manuel Lisa. So hopefully I didn't make any mistakes.
Okay, we got one more, Taylor.
Oh,
Did the paths of Big Elk and Abraham Lincoln ever cross?
No, because the question was, did Big Elk ever interact with Lincoln? I'm trying to see, when did Lincoln ascend to the presidency?
1861.
61, so yeah, Big Elk was dead by then.
But, okay, I wonder if like in that
If I recall, he was kind of a failed politician multiple times, so he would not have been, and he was from Illinois, right? He was a lawyer from Illinois? Kentucky.
Both, actually.
Both, yeah.
That's your all's history, not mine.
Help me thank Taylor King for